This is a very quick video just to show you how to set up whatever devices you have to hand to get them talking with D2MS and get outgoing notes from an incoming Midi source. So I've picked two things that we've not really used before within D2MS, so I'm going to use my Electribe here just as a sort of pad controller in lieu of where I normally use my drum kit, and I'm going to use the model cycles here as my sound source. So first of all, we'll just remove my little USB dongle that I use my iPad normally, and instead I'll plug in the samples and the Electribe. So we'll just go into our normal system setup and devices and Midi, and we can see that the Electribe 2 sampler is now in input 3 and the electron model cycles is in 4. So just to go from the start, we're going to go and we're going to select D2MS version 1.1. So if you were setting this up for the first time, this would be how you would be encountering it. The first two slots, whatever's in your Midi input 1, would always be set to be the input to D2MS by default, and whatever Midi device you have in Midi slot 2 in devices menu would automatically set for your output. So you might not need to do anything, but if you're like me and you've already had other things connected to your norms, then your new device controller and output might be further down the list, and those below 2 are all set to off. So we're just going to quickly show you how to turn them on. So we are going to go into Edit within D2MS, and we're going to scroll down to Device Setup, and we're going to go into there, and as you can see, I've got my eDrum in black set as my default in, and my Synco, which is my little MIDI dongle, as out. You can see that the Electribe sampler is there, but it's currently set to off. So we're going to alter that to in, because that's going to be our new MIDI input, and we're going to go to EMC, which is electron model cycles, and we're going to set that to out, because that's where we're going to send it to. Sorry that the screen grab is a bit glitchy. I'm going to go back to our default screen. So the other thing that we've not really covered before is how to quickly set up the D2MS inputs to equal the inputs that you have on whatever pad or controller or drum you're wishing to bind. So the quickest way to bind some inputs is actually just to, if they're not by default, because by default we have them from notes 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, so all the way up to 51, because that is a very common mapping for a lot of eDrums. But if you want to just quickly make them all whatever works for you, so in this case I'm going to map the bottom row of my, let me just move that a bit further forward, the bottom row of my Electribe sampler. I'm going to move that so that that becomes inputs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So all I have to do a very quick mapping is to be in the inputs context, which is the second context in our context menu, hold down an input that I want to change the note of, and press the input that I'm wanting to send to that. So but that basically binds my first pad here on my electron model samples. It binds that to the first top input there. And as you can see in the screen, the note has changed from the default of 36 over to 60, which would be the sort of first default note of the Electribe. So same again, so the default was 37, so I'm going to hold that input, hold the lit input, hit it, and then that second one will now change to its own note. Those two seem to share a note. Oh, it's because it's on different channels. Well, actually, that's interesting in itself. So as you can see, basically you can pick whatever channel you want. So here we go. So that's going to be, so they're all going to be in this case Note 60, but on channel 11, channel 12. Then first four is enough to get the idea across. So I can now just play whatever I have in my first four binded inputs, and they'll now, as you can see on the grid, they'll light up as I press them on. For example, I'm just going to move that up so you can see a bit more on the screen. So you can see the relationship between me pressing it on the electribe and it lighting up on the grid. So that confirms that we've got MIDI going in. But currently we're not experiencing any sound on the Electron box. And the reason for that is, I know this for a fact, that I have my tracks 1, 2, 3, and 4, instead of by default they come set up to channels 1, 2, 3, and 4, I have them set further down. So I'm essentially working back from 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11. So I actually start at 11. So if I go 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, if I basically make the same thing there, so 11 there, then 12, 13, and 14, I've now got so in this case, the electribe, the sequencer and everything isn't being used. All it's doing is just using the notes that we've bound as a trigger to trigger the electron model cycles. And because again on the cycles each of these is a separate channel, they actually are sort of chromatic. So I can quickly so that just quickly demonstrates how that binding works. So just as a quick recap, we plug in our USB ports, we figure out from the devices menu what the number, MIDI number each of those is, so which slot they're in. Then we go into the edit menu within D2MS and we go to devices, and then we just pick them as our ins and outs. We come over here, go down to our bindings option, we hold whichever input we're wanting to bind, and we play on whatever drum pad we are wanting to bind. That creates the binding between those two, and then we just have to assign the MIDI channels that correlate to whatever MIDI channels are on our outputting MIDI gear. So I hope that helps and clarifies, and we look forward to seeing what you do with it. Thank you. Bye.